There we go. Sweet. Cool. I've spoken to a few of you guys before. Obviously, Laura's the only one I can see, so I don't actually know who half of you are, but most of you guys, just going to mute you, Stacey, going to mute you, Francie. Cool. Most of you guys, hey, I probably chat to an Instagram, to be honest, or over emails and stuff, which is great. So it's nice to see you here. You're going to learn heaps tonight. You'll have a lot of questions on stuff. Really, I do these monthly workshops just to unpack the stuff I pop up on Instagram, because Instagram's just a highlight reel, right? So it's really hard to unpack the technical stuff around bloating in a 15, 20-second reel, because the idea is to capture your attention. You can't actually give you any data or anything helpful. And yeah, so that's why I run the workshops, really just to open your eyes to things. I will pop some links across tonight as well, just so that you guys, if you need stuff, like you need the cheat sheet after, or you want to nerd out more, get my words out right, into Dutch testing, GR360 SIBO testing, you definitely can. I have some really great videos on that. You may have seen them, you may not, but these videos that I have on YouTube really just help you guys understand a little bit deeper the value of testing and why it's so important. So I don't really have the time tonight to really nerd out on the test, and it's not really what tonight's workshop is about. But if it is something that you do want to learn more about, then yeah, just jump on Instagram, or I've got plenty of podcast episodes on this stuff as well, so that will help you all. So before we get started, can you just pop in the chat group, firstly, where you are from, so where you're listening from. So me is Margaret River, WA. So I've got a lot of clients in WA. I've also got a lot of clients overseas, New Zealand, Canada, USA, UK, heaps over east, New South Wales. Oh, Thailand, that's fun. Melbourne, another Perth, Mandurah. Oh, just up the road from me. Let me let these guys in. New South Wales. Sunny Coast. Yay. Couple of Sunny Coast girls there. I lived in Sunny Coast for 5 years. Tassie, cool. My best friend lives in Launceston. Senior in Queensland, Perth. Goldie now. Oh, New Zealand, South Island. That's a dream. I'd love to live over there for a while. It's so beautiful. Cool. So can you also pop in the chat if you've got one big symptom, what would it be? So most of you guys, it's either going to be bloating, or it might be constipation, or it might be loose stools, or it might be like your skin, or immune is another big one I see. I'm just going to pop these guys in from the waiting room. Might use do that. Put that in there. Let's see, nausea, bloating, acne, bloating, constipation, bloating, eczema, bloating, constipation. Oh, I love that there's some skin stuff in there as well, because there's some really cool links tonight. Stools, loose stools, 7 times a day, gas, bloating, constipation, stomach pain, fatigue, skin, bloating. Cool. So we've got most of the big ones there. Did I pop mine in the everyone? Yep, I did. Bloating, constipation, nervous system dysregulation. Yeah, nervous system is a huge one. The links between gut and mental health is insane. The changes I have seen in clients lately in their mental health from working on the gut has been wild, which has been really fun, good to see. All right, so it feels like we're all on the same ballpark there. Now, some of you guys would have heard of functional testing, some of you wouldn't. So tonight I'm going to dive into that a little bit, and then really just sort of unpack the links around testing. Now, I'm going to share screen with you. And let me pop that across. Cool. And let me pop that into present mode so you can see it better. Awesome. Now, if you have questions as I'm talking, pop them in the chat box, because it will highlight for me, and then I can stop and sort of unpack what your question is, or hit me at the end. Most people kind of just hit me at the end with it, but don't be afraid to muck up my flow. I don't really have a flow. I just wing it with these workshops and sort of go where it goes. So that's kind of how I roll. That's how I roll with the podcast. That's how I roll with everything, really. So for those who don't know me, just a little bit of background, more from a sort of employment point of view, what I do, where I've studied. So I have the podcast now. That's the photo on the right-hand side, just because A, I love to talk, B, my brain doesn't stop, and C, I love interviewing amazing women. So I've just had lately, the chick who came on last week, Tash, who talked about long COVID, was incredible. And the COVID back side effects and stuff was just, it was so interesting. I've had like somatic sexologist, which was mind-blowing just in the terms of getting out of your head, back into your body. We've had like Libby Westcombe, like my trainer, talks about muscle. We've had Kitty Bloomfield talk about sort of that whole perimenopause, eating enough protein, training. I've been really, touch wood, lucky, but I don't know if it's lucky or I just really nail these people, like, get on my podcast. So I've had some awesome guests come through. So go through, have a listen to that. If you haven't, also, if you are new to words like SIBO and low FODMAP diet and those kinds of things, you're really going to love the podcast, just for unpacking some of that stuff, and just sort of nerding out a bit deeper, because you guys can self-treat, right? Obviously, I don't recommend it because I'd be out of a job, but the idea is that if you haven't tried anything at all, then there are things you can try at a real grassroots level that are going to help with, say, thrush or constipation or loose stools. Like, there are tips and tricks. That's what tonight's about. There's things you can take home. That's what the podcast is about. If you feel really lost, or you've tried a lot of things, or you're really frustrated, or you're seeing your GP, yes, that's when you invest the couple hundred into functional testing, and that's when you join my program, and that's when you get real results. But these workshops are so valuable, and the podcast is so valuable just for getting these guys sort of those 1 or 2 percenters that are just going to give you little shifts. So anyway, rant on the podcast. My background, master's human nutrition. So that was in Deakin University. So they're in Melbourne, but I did it online. I was living in Sunny Coast. I grew up down south, Western Australia, so in Albany, then did my sports science degree, moved over east by myself for 5 years, did my master's, did postgraduate functional diagnostic nutrition after my master's. So I was studying for about 5 or 6 years. I did my trainer assessor stuff, so I was lecturing as well in Cert 3 and 4 in fitness, which was super fun, and also teaching those doing Cert 4 nutrition. Sorry, someone's just unmuted, so I'm just going to have a little scroll and just, if I see you, I will mute you. Otherwise, you might have bet me to it. No, Cheryl, there we go. Let's just turn the sound off you because I don't like to be outspoken. Cool. And so my job role is quite different to a naturopath or nutritionist, right? So I'm kind of a blend of the two. So basically, my background is sports science, movement, exercise. That's what I love. That's what I was going to go into. And then I got really sick. I'll touch on my story briefly, but basically I got really unwell. I was doing all the right things. I was exercising heaps. I was CrossFit. I was boxing. I was training hard. And I had a lot of fatigue. I was really stressed. I lost my periods for 7 years. And I just had, like, I was just exhausted, and there was no answers for it. I had the constipation for 10 years, all the stomach pain. Anyway, that made me think, well, there's got to be more to this picture, right? Like, women can't just be eating reasonably well and exercising and still feeling like shit. So that's when I decided, after my master's of nutrition, to do functional diagnostic nutrition, because then I came across the stool testing, and it basically changed my life. It gave me a life back. My 20s were spent in pain, exhausted, so stressed. It's really only the last couple of years as I've gone more down this route. So my business is 4 years full-time this October, but prior to that, I was probably doing a couple of years part-time, lecturing part-time, but was still figuring all the functional medicine stuff out, and now that I've got nailed, my gut's amazing, like touch wood, until I go to Bali. Every time I go to Bali, it just, I have to swear, it puts me back. So now I'm done like that. After like 2 years ago, no way, I got so sick again, and that's where it all started for me. So when I was 18, I went on a Bali trip because I live in WA and it's close, and I got Bali belly. And from there, that's when I lost my periods for that 7 years. That's when all my hormonal imbalance stuff started. I got adrenal fatigue. I had all the gut issues. So I would literally wake up with a flat stomach. And by the end of the day, I would have that bloat. And it doesn't look like a lot because I was very small and very underweight there because I had an eating disorder as well. But I can see that bloat there, and it was painful. I think what's hard to put across to people is the pain of that. And I couldn't sleep at nights. I was so exhausted. I couldn't poo, all this stuff, just because I picked up, which I didn't know, that I picked up 2 parasites, a bacterial, multiple bacterial overgrowths. I got Epstein-Barr virus. I got the glandular fever stuff, which wiped my immune system. So my body just got a whack, right? And then you go into the GPs and they're like, cool, you got no period, take a birth control pill. And I'm like, well, that's not an answer. How are we telling women who are not having periods to take the birth control pill to have a bleed? It wasn't good enough. And I was like, this is not right. Like, something's not matching up here. I can't poo, I'm exhausted, I'm tired, I'm eating well, I'm exercising. I was chronically stressed though, massive nervous system dysregulation. So all these things were overlapping. Anyway, when I came across the FDN stuff, the functional diagnostic nutrition, then I was like, oh, did the stool test, did the SIBO test, did the Dutch test, and was like, right, this is what's going on with my body. And I had clarity, because there's nothing worse than seeing doctors and GPs and everyone being like, you're fine. And I was like, no, I'm not fine. How is this fine? So when you start to understand that there's deeper things going on and you don't necessarily need a diagnosis, that's the key thing here, is that you don't need like a Hashimoto or endometriosis diagnosis to continue looking for answers, right? Like, no one could give me a diagnosis. They did bone marrow biopsies, they did blood testing, they did all this stuff, and there was no diagnosis, but I was clearly unwell. So it's that mismatch between functional, like your body functioning optimally, and your body just functioning. So your GP's there to keep you alive. That's their job. They do it well. That's where antibiotics come in. They are not there to make you live your best life ever, right? They're not there if you get occasional stomach pain, or you get IBS, or you can't poo every day. They're not there if you're chronically bloated every day, because bloating is not going to kill you generally. Like, that's kind of the thing we're going for here, right? So I don't get bloated anymore. I have 1 to 3 great bowel movements a day, and I freaking enjoy them, because I had so many years of constipation, and it was not fun, and it was painful, and it was sore, and I was uncomfortable, and I was moody, and I had no self-confidence, right? So these are the things you should have. I have so much energy every day. Unless I'm sick, I feel good, and I train hard, and I train twice a day, and I recover well, and I run a really busy small business, and I can do all that stuff because I suffered for 10 years, but then I found the cause of it as well. So you're here because you're frustrated, you've tried all the things, you've seen your GP, maybe you've run a GP stool test, which I'm going to demyth tonight is totally different to the testing I run. You might be eating healthy, you might be exercising, but you're looking for answers, okay? You might have unexplained autoimmune conditions, and you want to improve your gut health, you want to sort out your hormones, and you just want to feel good. Not only confident in your body, but mentally wake up and have clarity, not have brain fog, be able to do the things you want to do. So this is where the functional nutrition aspect really kicks in. Basically, I tell people, you want to take out the guesswork. Do the testing, do the test work, take out the guesswork. I don't want you to come to me and say, I'm tired and constipated, because without testing, that could be so many things. You could be under eating. It could be your thyroid. It could be your hormones. It could be a gut overgrowth. It could be, poor metabolism. It could be any of those things. How do I know, as qualified as I am and as experienced as I am, how do I know what it is without testing? I'm purely guessing. So you don't need to be told the foundations at this point. If I am turning around to you and telling you, you got to move your body each day and drink water and eat more fruit, you've got some real basic work to do, okay? But most of you guys, I want to say like 99%, probably all of you here know that you need to drink water each day. You know that you've got to move your body, either walk or Pilates or strength train or whatever it is. You know you feel better when you do it. So you need to go deeper and you need to get to the root cause of what's going on. So this is why I test. This is why I'm passionate about it. It changed my life. It is changing my clients' lives, and it's giving people answers. And that's something that, I don't know, I feel like the medical industry really doesn't give. I'm going to say women here because I work predominantly with women, but obviously with men as well. So the big questions people come to me with, either it's through Instagram or it's, before they start working with me, things are like, why can't I lose weight? Why am I reacting to random foods? Why am I bloated? Why is my skin breaking out? Or do I have eczema or dermatitis? Why am I so tired all the time? Why is my period so shitty? Why do I have constipation or loose stools? So you're stuck with answers and you're not getting the answers that you deserve, right? So you want clarity, and that's sort of what we're doing here tonight. So when you come across all these answers and you start having all these symptoms, generally, most of us will go to our GP because that's sort of our first point of call. Sometimes we might go to a nutritionist or a naturopath, but if I want to clarify here, I love nutritionists, I love naturopaths, and I love GPs. They all have their place. I'm a blend of them all. I cannot prescribe you antibiotics, but I will work with a functional GP who can give you bioidentical hormones or things that you need, especially coming into perimenopause or menopause, where they are essential. I work differently to a nutritionist who generally just give meal plans and dietary advice and those kind of things. I do that, but I also do more. Then I work differently from a naturopath who does herbs and maybe some food stuff. I do that, but I also do more. Okay, so my job role is quite broad in that sense. My qualification is as a nutritionist, but I do herbs, nutrients, so because you need herbal protocols to kill these bacteria, and then compounded scripts as well. So when we do the Dutch testing and there's hormonal stuff going on, I've done HTMA testing, so I know a lot about minerals, nutrients, the way minerals interact. And then I've done extensive study in these functional testing so that I understand exactly what's going on with the body. So my job role is a real meld of things, right? And that's where you need to be if you're running the testing, because if someone's spending $500 with you on a stool test, you sure as heck want to know what you're doing, and you don't want to turn around and just be like, cool, you got a parasite, go take antibiotics, because it'd be a waste of your money and it's a waste of my time and experience. I don't want to be doing that. If that's what a GP wants to do, that's their own thing. So if you go to your GP and you have these symptoms of things going on, the first thing you need to be looking at is what blood tests are they running and why are the results coming back normal, right? So the GP's range is really wide. I always say this to people, like their population is not made up of Sheridans who are functioning really well, okay? They are made up of generally quote unquote sicker people. So their ranges look very different and they're quite broad. So we want to be, so for example, let's take iron. The range for ferritin is from 30 to 200. If you turn around to me and tell me that the person who's at 30 feels exactly the same as the person who's at 200, I will not believe you, right? That's a huge difference. And to be fair, most people who come into my clinic and join my program are not even sitting at 30 a lot of the time. They are below that. So you need to understand the range is wrong. TSH, thyroid markers, those things are all wrong as well. They need to be smaller and needs to be more specific. They also don't look at nutrients, right? So you can see this list down here of key nutrients. These are the things I want to be looking at, and a GP very rarely runs them. When you join the root cause program, I give you a list of the functional bloods I want you to get done. A GP will only run maybe 50 to 60% of them. If we're lucky, 70 to 80%. And then the last 20 to 30%, people often get done privately. It is hard to get this testing done from your GP, okay? They can do it. This is the thing. They can, because what happens is out of the hundreds of women I work with, there's a range. Like I said, some get 30% done, some get 50% done, some get 70% done. They're not different practitioners. Someone's not going to a chiropractor and someone's not going to a GP asking for bloods. They're all going to a general practitioner. There's just no standard across the board, and because they don't agree, you get different testing runs. So it's a frustrating process for most people involved. But these are things you want to be looking at, because what happens is when you understand nutrients, you understand why you have gut issues. So for example, if your digestion's shit, I'm looking at zinc and I'm looking at B12, because you need them to produce enough stomach acid. If you've been on birth control pill or medication, these nutrients are depleted, which means you're going to have issues with stomach acid, which means you're prone to bacterial overgrowth, which means you're going to get bloated and constipated and lose stools. And then that's further going to impact you absorbing nutrients. So it's this horrible cycle that you get caught up in when you don't nail the root cause of what's going on. So a classic example is that people often go to me, oh, but I'm eating healthy and I'm not getting where I want to be. Now, why isn't your diet working? If you're eating well, why is changing your macros not helping you lose weight? Why is, eating healthy food still making you bloated or constipated or struggling with eczema or dermatitis? Now, Izzy is an awesome example of this. She's a PT in Perth who had this chronic perioral dermatitis around her face. She's competing. She runs a successful PT business. It was not her diet that was the issue. She had SIBO, she had bacterial overgrowth, she had chronic cortisol levels. All these things were impacting her skin, they were impacting her immune flares, and they were impacting her body's ability to heal, okay? So what you need to understand is that bacteria will give you random symptoms. It's not an A plus B equals C. So if you have an allergy, I've got a gluten allergy from having Epstein-Barr virus. If I eat gluten, I get really bloated and I get constipated for 3 days and I get brain fog and I get stomach pain. That is a non-negotiable. That is what happens. Now, in my clients who come into the root cause program, they're having random supplements. Sure, they might have a pure reaction to gluten, but they also then randomly might not eat gluten and still get bloating. And then one day they eat dairy and they're fine, and the other day they eat dairy and they get loose stools. So it's really hard to pinpoint your triggers. It's really hard to know what actually is going on. And this is because you've got a cup. You've got a histamine cup and a bacterial fermentation cup in your body. Think of it like this. You can eat so much of these foods and your body can break it down till the cup's full. Then it overflows, you get symptoms, things ferment, there's too many histamines, your body can't break it down, there's not enough enzymes, and you get all your symptoms. This clears after a day or two, and then you go back up and you build your way up and you build your way up and you're fine, and then all of a sudden it's too much. So this is where things like your low FODMAP diet and stuff really play a role in trying to manage those symptoms. I don't recommend them long term, but they are something that can be beneficial and helpful when you're trying to manage that symptom picture. So I want to chat about testing because this is obviously the crux of what I do. Now, the big test that I like to run in clinic is your large intestine, your small intestine testing. They're my big ones. We'll go into those in detail. Your hormone testing, so your Dutch or your saliva. I do a lot of vaginal microbiome testing because a lot of the women who come into the program either have BB, thrush, or herpes. So it can be really important to identify what bacterial strains are low in the vaginal microbiome. We'll do your functional blood work, as we've chatted about already, and then I do your adrenal / hormone testing as well, just to sort of figure out what's going on there. So SIBO, a lot of people don't know the word. Small intestinal bacterial growth is what it stands for. You can Google it, that's what it is, right? So 99% of cases generally are SIBO. So the big symptoms of SIBO: bloating, constipation, loose stools, right? So should be IBS-C and IBS-D. So when you have SIBO, you have too much bacteria in a place where there should not be bacteria. So that's in your small intestine. I want the bacteria down in your large intestine because that's where I want things to ferment. That's where I want short chain fatty acids to produce, and that's what's going to produce healing properties from food, as opposed to this gas, which is going to block the absorption of nutrients. So this is a SIBO breath test. Basically, you drink a little lactulose sugar solution. This interacts with the bacteria in your small intestine, ferments it, you produce gas. We collect the gas when you blow it out, or you collect it, but you send it to the labs. And then we look and see whether it's hydrogen or methane. So you can see from these lines here, grey is hydrogen, black is methane. Basically just means two different types of bacteria. Basically just gives you a treatment plan and me an idea of what herbs to use, okay? Because different bacteria need different herbs to kill them. And this is why people get stuck, because if you just use, let's just say, oregano because you have bloating, well, you're basically just throwing your antibiotics in your gut without any idea what you're treating. So the testing not only gives you clarity, it gives you a time frame, and then it lets you know what's going on so that you can go, cool, I need to do 6 to 8 weeks worth of SIBO, or moly moly, my SIBO is so high, I probably actually need to do 12 weeks, and halfway I need to change my herbs, right? So you need that clarity around timeframes and symptoms, because different bacteria will give you different symptoms. It'll also impact the way and the foods you eat. So do we use restrictive diets for things like SIBO? Yes, you do, because you're trying to downplay your symptom picture. And I posted a reel on this yesterday, I think it was, because I get asked this so often where people are like, do I need to change my diet, this and that? When you come into the root cause program, you're going to have gut symptoms. That's why you're there generally. I mean, otherwise it's hormonal stuff, but there's something going on. When you walk away in 6 months, you're not going to have gut symptoms because you've healed and restored and rebuilt your microbiome. That's the whole point of a 6-month program. You remove, you rebuild, you repair, so that you don't come knocking on my door in 3 months being like, hey, Sheridan, my SIBO's come back. And I'll be like, yeah, well, did you rebuild and repair? Did you take your prebiotics? Did you add the foods back in? If you stay on a restrictive diet long term, you will impact your good gut flora, right? So things like a low FODMAP diet, we use a more specific one inside the program, but these things are going to remove inflammation. They're going to remove your symptoms. They're going to make you feel good so that you feel motivated, so that you can poo, so you can clear bacteria, and we can actually treat the root cause of it. There's no point being stuck in these chronic bloating cycles without, progressing and being able to treat anything. Most people find a high protein, low carb diet or an immune protocol like AIP is the most supportive for gut healing, okay? Just because the carbohydrates, I love them and we reintroduce them within 7 to 14 days in the program, but they do ferment. So if you've got this bacterial overgrowth, you're just going to feel worse on some specific carbohydrates. Then I always say to people, digestive supportive foods are great. So your beef liver for your B vitamins and your copper and your iron, and things like oysters for your zinc, and things like your eggs and your butter for your vitamin A and your cod liver oil. These things are really important to help that healing process. So the other main testing I run is the GR360. Now, again, like the SIBO report, you guys can find these things online. I do have YouTube videos on them breaking them down. This is like a 20-page report. So obviously I've just done one page for the sake of tonight. But I have YouTube videos where I'll share screen it and show it. If you book in a free gut health chat with me, you will get the link prior to chatting to me, because you need to understand the importance of these tests before you work with me, because I'm not going to try and convince you to do the testing. That's not my job role. My job role is to do the testing with you and get the results that you deserve. And the testing is a tool in that process, okay? If you come to me and you don't want to do any testing, I'm not the right person for you, because I want you to get results and I want you to get answers. And the testing is what maps it out for you. It goes, hey, cool, over the next 6 months, 6 to 8 weeks, we're going to treat this. 6 to 8 weeks, we're going to treat that. This is how we're going to rebuild. This is how we're going to repair, so that I know you get results, as opposed to me kind of being like, cool, we're going to try this. And if that doesn't work, we will workshop it, you and me. And then we'll try this. And if that doesn't work, then we'll try that, which, let's be honest, I'm pretty good at my job. So we've got a really good shot, but you need motivation and accountability. And if you do not have test results that tell you how much you've let this jungle in your gut get out of control, or your hormones are totally burnt out, which we'll see in your Dutch testing, how, let's say, flat you are, then you're probably not going to stay motivated for 6 months, maybe 6 weeks if I'm lucky, but probably not 6 months. Whereas when you've got a clear plan in place and you go, cool, okay, let's have a look at this GR360, flip, I've somehow managed to get an E. coli infection. I've got citrobacter, which means I've probably got SIBO. I've got all these fermenting bacteria in there. My liver's shot. My inflammation markers are really high. My digestion is shitty. You're going to be like, okay, Sheridan, I'm committing to this process because I can see how much work needs to be done. So I think there's more to the testing than just giving you clarity and validating your symptoms. I think what's really important is it gives you time frames. It gives you clarity on what supplements to use to treat things. Like, there's no point in me giving you anti-parasitic herbs if you don't have a parasite. And so many people come to me and they've done parasite protocols and they've done these yeast protocols and they still feel shitty and terrible and bloated, but that's because they don't actually have those things. So you're just guessing, right? So the GR360 is amazing. It is the big one I use in clinic because it works really well and gives big answers. If you've done stool testing elsewhere, you can bring it to me and use it in the program 100%. If you've just done a GI map through Nutripath, which is awesome, or, I mean, these testing I run worldwide because I've got clinics all around the world where you can get them from. But if you've just done one and you want me to work with it, that's totally fine. I can do that as part of my program, but my preference is the GR360 just because of the data it gives us. And it's a 3-day stool test, so the accuracy is pretty bang on. So it unpacks a lot of things: inflammation, autoimmune triggers, leaky gut lining, good bacteria, bad bacteria, parasites, yeast, infections. The one I saw today that I posted on my Instagram story was wild because she's probably got an autoimmune condition like Crohn's or ulcerative colitis or something, because her inflammatory markers the range is up to 80. Hers was 2000, I think it was. So that's a referral to a GP gastroenterologist. So there are things that get missed by your GP. There are so many clients I've referred back to a GP to go see a gastroenterologist to get a colonoscopy because I do value that medical route. But then on the other hand, a lot of people have had those medical things done and don't have answers because this testing is not run by the GP. So that's why I run it. So test and don't guess. You can't use diet alone to heal, right? So you can do these things, which is great and awesome and really good strategy in your healing, like healing your bloating. Definitely have a play with the Monash University app, unpack, sort of what's going on with FODMAPs and stuff if you want to, but don't do it long term and don't expect that to heal you. It will reduce your symptoms, sure, but diet alone is not enough. It doesn't kill all these infections in here, right? It just stops feeding them temporarily. They don't just magically go away though, and you can't just throw bacteria, so probiotics, onto bacteria and expect it to fix itself. It just doesn't work. So you have to break down biofilms, you have to go in with strong antimicrobials, you have to remove these things, and then you have to come in and spend time rebuilding and repairing it, okay? So it is a process. It does take time. Candida, parasites, yeast, bacteria, they all respond to different herbs, whether it's oregano, garlic, berberine, cordiaco, whatever it is, you need clarity on what you're treating so that you can actually get rid of it, so that you can get rid of that fermentation, which is ultimately what these guys want. You've all got bloating and constipation and skin issues. Skin issues are coming from SIBO. Constipation and bloating coming from that black line, which is methane dominant SIBO, that's causing constipation. The hydrogen causes loose stools. The bloating will come from the bacterial overgrowth, or it will come from low good gut flora in the gut. If you do not have enough good gut flora, you cannot digest food. And this is why we test, because you could have an overgrowth or you could have an undergrowth. Imagine if you have an undergrown microbiome and I just walk in with a heap of herbs, throw them at your gut, thinking you've got a parasite or candida, you put yourself back 6, 7, 8, 9, 12 months, because it's like taking antibiotics. And yeah, Stacey, is definitely common to feel worse. There's something called, I'll pop in the chat box because you probably won't know otherwise. It's called a Herpes reaction. So basically you get this die off, right? So you need to be able to make sure your liver's working well. So this is where your Dutch comes into play here. So you can detox things. You also need to be pooping daily, and you need to be sweating things out, and you need to be taking binders like Toxaprevent, or there is one in my parasite protocol, the Mucosa Paducah, whatever the name of it is. It's going to do my head in, but it's on my Instagram post. If you DM me on Instagram, I can send it to you. It's one you can get off iHerb, but you need to be doing things like that, or activated charcoal as well. It's a key part in the healing process. Is when you start treating this stuff, you do get die-off, definitely, and you've got to make sure you can get it out. So eating enough fiber, regular bowel movements. If you're bloated and you're trying to treat an infection and you're constipated, all that happens is all those toxins sit there. It's like when you get high estrogen symptoms, right? No worries, Stace. When you get high estrogen symptoms, if you can't poo properly, these things just get reabsorbed, right? So say your estrogen is like this, 4.6, and you're not having bowel movements, that sits in your large intestines, you reabsorb that, and it makes you feel worse. So we need to make sure that you're having regular bowel movements so you can detox these things and get them out the body. The Dutch test is incredible. I've only got the snapshot from the start of the page. I didn't put the whole thing in here because it's just too much for you guys, but the YouTube video I have on it is phenomenal. I break down the whole thing, liver detoxing, hormones, all that stuff, perimenopause, menopause, HA, PCOS, endometriosis. You guys need to run a Dutch test. It's probably my favorite. Like, the stool testing is epic for getting results. But you're just talking about shit all day. It's like whatever. But hormones is fun. Like, it's like, okay, skin issues, like menstrual cycles, endometriosis, all those kinds of things, perimenopause, what's going on. It's just a little bit more sexy, for better use of the word. So When do I run a Dutch test? Now, normally someone comes into the root cause program, we spend the first couple months working on gut health, because in the pyramid of health, the bottom of it is your microbiome. If you don't have enough good gut flora, you can't heal your hormones. If you don't have enough good gut flora, you can't absorb your nutrients. If you don't have enough good gut flora, you're going to get gut infections. So what is the point of us working on hair loss, skin, libido, thrush, those high level ticket items, without building up the basics first? It just makes no sense. If you don't have gut symptoms at all, sometimes we won't do a stool test, but we'll just do a little bit of gut work first and then get your Dutch testing done. Can constipation be caused by high estrogen as well? Absolutely, absolutely. And yep, so when it comes to gut symptoms and estrogen, there's two sort of times it can flare up. So in my endometriosis clients, ovulation can be a really crappy time for them, because I don't know how much you guys know about hormones, but let me show you this, because I don't have it in here. Let's see if I can get out of, if I can escape this. Let me show you something. So let's look at hormones over the menstrual cycle. And sorry if this is just obvious stuff to you, but for being rude and just assuming you know, let's see if that actually has a graph that you can see properly. Here we go. So basically, when it comes to the menstrual cycle, you can see in your period, in your bleed, those hormones are quite low, right? Then you come into, well, this is actually the word for it, follicular phase, and then the second half is the luteal phase. So follicular because the follicles are growing, and then luteal is after it's released, and then the corpus luteum produces progesterone. So in this phase here, that blue line should be estrogen. Yeah, so we can see E2 is rising. Around or after ovulation, it starts to dip, but that rise, and same with, where's your progesterone? Yeah, so that rise of hormones around ovulation, if you've got endometriosis, which is often driven by high estrogen and immune dysfunction, then you can get a lot of cycles around that ovulation time period. Then the second half is where that progesterone should be nice, okay? Now, if you've got, there's two types of estrogen dominance. One is when estrogen is fine, but progesterone is low. So you don't have the calming, soothing, gut healing, mental health effects of progesterone, but you've just got high estrogen. So you're going to be symptomatic because there's no balance to it. The other one is when progesterone is fine, but estrogen is high. And the things that will kick up estrogen: stress, too much caffeine, alcohol, immune dysfunction can do it. But generally, a big one is like a stress response that's sort of causing that estrogen to flare up. On the other hand, you can get a higher stress response, which will lower those sex hormones as well, because when you're stressed, your body doesn't want to have a baby, so it will skip cycles. And like you'll have anovulatory cycles, you may still bleed, but you may not release an egg. This is then also giving you those PMS side effects and symptoms. So basically, ovulation can cause it, or that week leading up to your bleed. So the secretory phase, they're calling it. I'm just going to call it that because otherwise I'll confuse you. But in that period, if your progesterone is low, that's going to give you a lot of symptoms as well, and that can impact the gut as well. So it just depends as to your hormone picture. Is there any way to tell which type of estrogen dominance you have without testing? No, absolutely not. You can track your menstrual cycle and see if you're ovulating, which will give you a hint of progesterone, but without testing, you can still go through an adequate cycle and not know, like, oh, let me pull this back for you guys, and not know what's going on. Where's that estrogen picture? What's going on with that estrogen. Your bloods will give you a snapshot. They'll look at FSH, LH. So if you suspect PCOS, you have to get that run anyway. You have to get insulin run anyway. But if you're trying to work out that estradiol to progesterone ratio, really spend the $200 on a saliva test. That'll give you free cortisol. So this map down the bottom, it'll give you estrogen and progesterone. So it will give you a snapshot, or do a Dutch. A Dutch, it gives you so much more. It's a $400 test. It's worth every dollar because the data it gives you is absolutely phenomenal. And my YouTube video will break that down for you, and the podcast episodes. But it's going to tell you how you metabolize your hormones. So basically, if you've got acne, heavy painful periods, endometriosis, all those things link into liver detoxing, and the Dutch breaks down how you detox those pathways. If you're taking bioidentical hormones, you want to run a Dutch because you want to see how you break them down before you start taking extra hormones. So for a snapshot, saliva testing is awesome. For looking at adrenals, it's totally fine. It's really reliable. It's great. It's better than bloods. It'll tell you progesterone to your estrogen. For slightly more complex stuff, like the things I've listed on the left-hand side, I would invest in Dutch testing. It is the gold standard of hormone testing. Dr. Carrie Jones built it, and she is phenomenal. Do you need to be off the pill for effective Dutch testing? Preferably if you want to look at your hormones, because the pill obviously is giving you synthetic hormones. What you will gain from the Dutch test is you will gain this adrenal activity. So free cortisol, which is basically what's racing around your blood, and then metabolized cortisol. So what your adrenal glands are actually producing, right? Which are two very different things, and both are very, very important in the picture of fatigue, in the hormone picture, mental health picture, sex picture, gut healing picture. Totally, totally important. But what was I going to say? Oh yeah, so the pill, you won't be able to have accurate hormones because you're not ovulating, but you will get a good a good adrenal picture, liver detoxing pathway picture, organic acids. It looks at your B vitamins, all that stuff as well. I would personally, if someone's open to coming off the pill, we spend the first 2 or 3 months supporting your liver, building your nutrients back up into range, and fixing your gut because the pill has stuffed your gut. So work on that for a couple months, come off the pill so you don't get a whole rebound and skin or heavy periods or all that shit that you possibly went on it for. Then give yourself 1 to 2 periods and then do your hormone testing. That's the ideal. Not everyone can or needs to come off the pill. It's not a good time for them, or whatever it is, they're not ready to do fertility awareness. Actually, listen to the podcast I did with Jessie Brebner on fertility awareness. It was amazing. And also with Lisa Hendricks-Jacks ages ago from the Fertility Friday podcast. But yeah, if they're not open to it, that's totally fine. But then I say do adrenal testing, work on your nutrients, work on your gut health, because your body's trying to detox all those synthetic hormones. So you really need to make sure that you are supporting that process. Or you do also deplete zinc and B12, and it throws out copper by being on the pill. So we just want to make sure we're touching all bases before we play around with that. Implement affect the Dutch test. The Implanon, what does that one do? That one secretes hormones into your body from memory, because the Mirena you can do it on because it doesn't block ovulation. I can't remember if the Implanon blocks ovulation or not. The Mirena's fine. The birth control pill obviously stops ovulation because you've got a sugar bleed. And then Implanon, I feel like would. Obviously, they're all the same in the sense that I want you off it preferably. If you can be off it for 2 months, that would be perfect. If you can't, I would honestly do your gut work, do your adrenal work. If you do have issues still, like with skin stuff and whatever, do the foundation things first, and then you've got to question, why am I on these contraceptions and what can I do about it? Because you can support all those detoxing pathways without running a Dutch. So just depends as to why you're on it, why you want to come off it, what symptoms you have. So it's probably better to book a gut health planning session with me, book one from my website, and then unpack it with me there. No worries. Cool. All right, let's flick through these last couple. So I just want to touch on the fact that bloating does go beyond the gut. So this stuff, like we've chatted about, will impact constipation and bloating. There's something called nestrobolone. You need enough good gut flora to bind up your hormones properly. Basically, estrogen will increase your water retention, your fluid retention, your weight. So if your estrogen's high, you're going to have gut issues typically. And you see that when you see changes around people's cycle. You may not be able to answer that. Testing complete 5 weeks ARP, yay. But I feel my bloated constipation is worse. I have no dietary reaction. Do you think it's likely parasite? Yeah, I would say so. I'm assuming you mean of an AIP and low FODMAP, because that's a very restrictive diet, or you did AIP and then low FODMAP diet. Just letting you know, Maddie, just sending it direct. Oh no, sending that to everyone. Okay, doing it both. I wouldn't recommend it because that's super restrictive. It will make your constipation worse. Definitely a low FODMAP diet can tend to do that. AIP is only good if there's immune stuff. If you've got fermentation issues, it's not going to help. I would have said SIBO. I would have said methane dominant SIBO, especially if you've got bloating and constipation. So do a you want to do a SIBO breath test is what you're going to do, because adding more fiber is not going to help. It'll make it worse, and eating a lot of that garlic and onion and stuff won't help either. So it's probably one of those things. If you've got an undergrown microbiome and you've got a SIBO overgrowth, you just want to test enough of that, because otherwise you'll go in circles with your diet. So the testing, you can do it at home. It's sent to your house. It's authorized by a practitioner like myself. So remember, it's not through a GP, guys. The testing is basic. You can do it anywhere in the world. I authorize it once you join my program, and then you do it at home. So your breath test, you do at home. Your stool test, you do at home. Your Dutch test is a dried urine test. You do that at home. Your saliva test, you do that at home. You do not need to go anywhere for them. You're doing both. Oh, awesome. Sorry, wait, I answered that. Do you need to retest the GI map? See if your symptoms aren't that bad anymore. Yeah, so a lot of people ask if they needed retest. Look, honestly, if you've spent $500 on testing, which you have when you work with me, and you've done that stool test, or you've done a Dutch test, which is $400, I don't push people to retest for large intestine stuff, because generally we parasites we can retest with the bulk build stool test, because once you've identified what you've got and how overgrown it is from a GI map, we can just retest with a stool test like 8 weeks post-treatment to see if it's grown back. So that's a free retest. But your bacteria and those more complex things, if that autoimmune bacteria, which some are nasty, then I say, can you please retest? It'll be a cheaper stool test, because you can just do a simple one. You don't need to do the full microbiome one again. Usually your symptoms go and then you rebuild and repair, and you don't need to retest it. But if you do have really inflammatory stuff, then I will say, hey, do it. SIBO is different. Now, with SIBO, you do want to test, because you do want to know it's gone. So, for example, my bad SIBO cases, that blue line's the combination. It's a bit of a shitty marker. They've stopped doing it. This is an older screenshot, because it doesn't mean anything really. But in a bad constipation case, that black line will be up at the 100 mark. So if you've got 100 ppm, so you're producing 100 gas of methane, that's going to take you about 12 weeks to get that back down to baseline. You want to know 6 weeks in that your herbs are working and that it's coming down. Because if it's not, you need to change your herbs and change your strategy, because SIBO is so complex. It's such a beast. It's different in everyone. There's multiple root causes for it. It's not just, hey, I've got SIBO. There's thousands of Facebook groups around SIBO, because it's not just identifying you've got the SIBO. That's actually the easy part. Pay $200 for a test and you know whether you've got SIBO. Done. It's treating it, removing it, finding the root cause of it, and then rebuilding and repairing so you don't get it back again, because when you have it, it's a pain in the ass to get rid of. So that's SIBO. Let's put that in there. Yeah, cool. Yeah, it is. So I just want to clarify this because I get asked this a lot. People say to me, do you just do a single session and look, can you run a test with me and do one single session and look at my results? My answer is a hard no. Okay, because I want to see people heal. And I used to do my first couple of years of clinic, I used to do single sessions like a standard nutritionist and naturopath. But as you can see, just from tonight, so much goes into one test. There is no way I can convey all the answers and the solutions from one GI 360 in a practical, implementive way in 60 minutes that you're going to be able to use across, the next 3, 4, 5, 6 months. You would have to have multiple sessions with me. So every 4 to 6 weeks, you'd want to probably be seeing me then, because you have no intercession support. Because then what does happen is every 2 to 3 days, your symptoms change. You want to try new foods. You randomly get thrush. You go out and eat something random. Now you're bloated again. You don't tolerate a supplement. So you have constant questions. You cannot afford to pay me every time you have a question. You simply can't. I'm too highly qualified that it would be a waste of your time and your money. So instead, I've built a 6-month program, which means you get untapped access to me and my amazing team. You get those one-on-one sessions with me, but between those one-on-ones, you've got check-ins, you've got weekly group calls, you've got a Facebook group that everyone is asking the same stuff as you. So you do keep progressing and moving, because I was sick of seeing people coming and seeing me, spending all this money on testing and then doing 3, 4, 5 weeks and falling off the bandwagon because they got too overwhelmed. It got too hard. They got confused. They reacted to their supplements. They had shitty die-off effects and they were like, this sucks. I don't want to do this. And I would be the same. If I was taking die-off, I'd be like, this Sheridan's cooked. Look what she's making me do, right? Whereas if you can literally go in a Facebook group and go, hey, Sheridan, I'm getting loose stools from the supplements. What's going on? And I can be, within 2 days, whatever, hey, cool, do this, try that, jump on a group call, let's unpack it. Sweet, sorted, we move on, you keep progressing. So that is why. And the other thing is, people do not understand the impact of nervous system, exercise, hormones, gut, all that stuff is interlinked. So when you have someone who's looking at your bloods and your hormones and your gut, you are so much more likely to get results than trying to expect, kind of like going to your GP and expecting to get answers in a 10-minute session. You can't get enough results from me in a 60-minute session. You need that spread out because you're only human and you'll get overwhelmed and then you don't do anything. That's just all I see. Someone just said I have eczema all over from hives, SIBO, only came on in my late 20s, no allergy, more likely hormones or gut. Yeah, look, eczema is an autoimmune thing that's sort of coming into its own realm now of that. I would be following this lady. She is a good friend of mine. Let me make sure this is on, everyone. Dr. Jen Fugo. She's got the Healthy Skin Show is the name of her podcast from memory. I'm on it. She's on mine. She's epic. She refers her clients to me in Australia, so I'm more than happy to work with you. But her big thing is stool testing, and her podcast would be one of the biggest ones for this kind of stuff, eczema, psoriasis. Her Instagram, phenomenal. You'll love it. She's amazing. She's really good. But stool testing, and then also your bloods. And then I would go into hormones as well. So I have a lot of clients who've had psoriasis, eczema, dermatitis, those kinds of things. Lots on my Instagram page. And the big thing has been minerals, nutrients, stress, gut health, hormones. So it's kind of all of it. In those skin issues, honestly, skin is the most complex thing to treat. Bloating's easy compared to skin stuff because you need to hit every single aspect of it. And that's why, yeah, learning and watching things are really cool. SIBO bellies, that's just classic lower abdominal bloat. And I just want to point this out to people. It's not always weight. Like, a lot of people go, am I putting on weight or am I bloated? It's often just pure bloating, guys. Like, sure, you might want to lose weight. That's going to be a side effect of getting healthier. Women in my program generally lose weight if they've got weight to lose, because they're holding on to fluid, they're holding on to inflammation, and they've got a low-grade bloat going on, which always impacts it. Skin stuff's been a big one we've seen over the last couple of years as well, just from supporting hormones, Chinese medicine herbs, hormone support, and gut health in a lot of women. Detoxing is a big one. Skin, bloated bellies. Oh, there's Chloe's hands, the eczema, dermatitis stuff. That was from working on her gut health. She did the most amazing testimonial for me, because she was just like, I've had eczema on my hands for 15 years. And she's like, I cannot believe that now my hands don't break open. So that was really cool. If you guys want to chat more about this stuff with me, you can book a free gut health planning session that is just on my website. That's pretty easy to find. It's linked into my Instagram bio. You can jump to my free Facebook group, Gut Health Solutions. You can DM me on Instagram and I'll send you the link to book in. But generally, that's going to be your best step forward to unpack that kind of stuff. So whether it's skin, whether it's gut, whether it's bloating, whether it's wanting to know more about testing, or you've got test results and you want someone to unpack it with, that would be me. So any questions that I haven't already answered, please just pop them in the chat before I wrap this up for tonight. I did grab it on for an hour. I always think it's going to be like 20 minutes, and all of a sudden I'm like, shit, I really don't shut up. So hopefully you got something out of that and that was helpful and useful. Like I said, I do these every month. They always vary a bit, but the podcast has got heaps of stuff. My Instagram's got heaps of stuff. So my 6-month program, so the root cause program, is a set price. That's all on my website, and I've got the information pack on there as well that you can download so you can see all what's included and why it's so comprehensive. The testing varies from person to person. So you have the pricing of the program, and then you come in and we decide together what you need. Do you need saliva? Do you need stool? Do you need Dutch? Do you need both? Do you want hair mineral analysis stuff? Do you have, things going on? So we tailor that to you. We tailor your nutrition to you. We tailor your supplements to you. But the pricing of the program includes obviously your one-on-ones with me, your 24/7 support basically through the group, through the weekly group calls, through the mentors we get on, and then also through weekly check-ins if you want to tell me stuff privately as well. So it just unpacks all of that. But the info pack on the website is amazing. The website page is really pretty. My website is beautiful. I'll be the first to say it. And I've had it for 4 years and I still love it because I had a really good designer at the time, and she was like, I know your vibe. You got the girl next door vibe, and I'm going to throw this across your website. And it was just, for any other small business owners, like, investing in it is actually really worth it. I have invested heavily into my business. It's not something I talk about because everyone wants to chat about poo, but I am really big on growing businesses as well. And I love my small business and I love my team, but it also means the program we give to women, which is the only way I work now. We used to have multiple offers, but it's simply the root cause program, because that's where people get the results, and all the results you see on my Instagram and my website are all from that program. So hopefully that helps you. Is the strategy 1, 2, 3 to beat the bloat addressed within your program? Yeah, so the program's obviously way more in depth in this stuff tonight. That's kind of just the testing, the diet, the testing, the supplements, the hormones is sort of the main things from the PDF. But obviously inside the program, we actually run the testing. We find a diet that works specifically for you. We find the supplements that work specifically for you. And then we nut out your hormones as to how that's impacting your testing. Because most women will, not all, but most do come in either with low libido, hair loss, skin conditions, immune stuff, thrush, BV, all which link into hormone pictures. So we start with the gut health stuff. We get that right. We get your energy up, your minerals, your nutrients, all that stuff. And then we go, cool, where are we sitting? Do we want to do saliva? Do we want to do Dutch? where do we want to go from there? Because I feel like that's kind of how the female body works. It's like, cool, now we're pooing. Now what? Now why are our hormones not happy? So that's kind of the next step along. No worries, Maddie. Hopefully you guys have booked a free chat with me, or you're going to. I'd love to talk to you in person. Let me know if you can't get in the next 7 to 10 days, because my calendar fills up really fast, but I always have slots that I don't put on the general calendar, so that when I do workshops and when I do things, I have some up my sleeve. So you can always email me if you can't find a time in 7 to 10 days, or message me on Instagram. I spend way too much time on there. I honestly do. It's freaking annoying, and it messes with my dopamine, and I know this, and I'm still on there. So don't hate the player, hate the game, Sheridan. It's your own fault. But thank you all for coming tonight. I really appreciate it. That was an awesome turnout, and hopefully you got something out of tonight. This has been way more informative than I expected. My pleasure. I'm here to help you guys as much as I can up until the testing point. Obviously, that's, you know, as much as we can sort of do in these sessions. But thank you all for coming, and I will hopefully see you all around somewhere on the gram, probably. Thank you. Bye.